We're so pleased to be joined again by Ruth. We're so grateful for your time, Ruth, and just welcome to this call. And I'd love for us to maybe start with just running through a little bit more about this financial questionnaire, why we do it, what it looks like. People might be asked to sign up and do this questionnaire when they've been on a call with you, or maybe if they're looking to prepare and get ahead in their finances, then doing this financial questionnaire can be a really valuable starting point. And I'm sure you'll agree, Ruth, but please do tell us a little bit more about why the financial questionnaire is important, and how it all works, and I can share it so we can run through it.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you very much, Katie, and thanks for having me on tonight. I just wanted to say that when you come and see anybody to do with looking into your finances, it is so important that you fill in some form of spreadsheet, notes, or questionnaire that's on the screen currently that I've done, just so that we know exactly how much you have going out each month. So that can be from maybe a number of different jobs that you might have. You might just have one, and you add all that up, and then you can see what your yearly amount is that you have. And then what we look at then is when we work out how much you have yearly, obviously you'll know if you're employed in a job, you'll have your monthly wage or pay packet given to you, and you'll have a set amount at the bottom after tax, national insurance contributions, and your pension, and any benefits in kind have been taken. So that'll give you your monthly amount. Once we figure out what that is, we then move on to the expenditure. So that is how much you spend, what goes where. There's no right or wrong answer. It doesn't matter. Trust me. I've seen it all on questionnaires. Confidentiality is key though, so I'm going to leave it there. But what I want to say is it's a twofold exercise. One is so that we can work out what we call disposable income is. And disposable income is how much you are left with when you get your wage, and then after all your bills have come out, what is left at the end. So that can be usually it can range from having nothing into having quite a significant amount. But so that's one thing that we look at, because we need to make sure that your disposable income, so what you have left after all your bills have been paid, we need to make sure that it's affordable if we put anything in place for you, because the last thing we want to do is put anything in place that you might then go into debt to have that in. That is 100% no from us. So we need to do our due diligence and check that it's affordable. I'd love to be, for instance, driving a Maserati round, but my finances mean I can't afford it. So I look at that, and as my mum says, you've got to cut your coat to your cloth, and you kind of manage it. And everyone, no matter how much money you have, has to do this. So we do it so that's one reason. Another reason is to work out what goes where. So as in, do you know how much you spend on coffees per week? Do you know how much you spend on takeaways per week, or anything like that? Because a lot of people have a bit of, as I call it, aha moments, where they go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I was spending this much on coffees or whatever it may be. Because those, what is it now, Kate? Is it like £2.75 or £3 for a coffee or something?
Yeah, easily. And that I think when it feels like a one-off, that quickly mounts up, doesn't it? And I think a really important point, as a reflection from my own doing this as well, is like, let's do this questionnaire without judgment of ourselves. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, you shouldn't be buying so much coffee. Like, let's look at it with some curiosity rather than criticism. Like, oh, that's really interesting. Actually, this much money went to coffee, rather than like a head in the sand, which is completely understandable when we're worried about filling these things out, because it feels like it might be uncomfortable. And I know doing this and the way you've laid it out really makes it very doable.
I think 100% you're right, and thank you for that, Katie, because there is no right or wrong answer here. Now, don't get me wrong, if at the end you're coming out with absolutely nothing, then we need to look at where that is and why that is. And then obviously you might need to make some changes. But I don't mind what you spend it on. It's just making sure that it's affordable for you. And the other reason, which is really important, is if you want a certain lifestyle, then if you're going for a new job, how much do you need to make sure you can pay your bills? Do you want that first house? How much do you need to be able to look at bills and make sure that is, you know, that you're going to be able to cover it with your new salary. So it's also a budgeting stroke forecasting tool for you. So there's many, many reasons, but it's mostly take power, take charge, and just find out what's there. And there are many, many different ways you could do it, but this is just purely just an example of one of the ones that I created to try and think of what people have said to me over the years, of what they spend it on, and then collate it all together. And then we can run through it as well as to why we've structured it the way we have, Katie. We'll do, maybe if we're able to, share the screen and look at it.
Of course we can do. We can do a bit of a walkthrough. So hopefully that should be up on the screen now. For anyone that's watching live, we'll pop in the chat where you can download this from the digital delegate bag. If you're receiving this in an email or you're watching this before maybe booking in with Ruth, then please just know that you will be able to download that. We'll pop some accompanying information so you can download your own version of this. So over to you, Ruth, and I'll navigate round.
Oh, thank you so much. So yeah, this is, if you look at the bottom, first of all, there are 3 tabs. You've got introduction, income and expenditure, and then you've got assets and liabilities. Now, don't forget there's 3 of them there, and each one of these is very important in their own right. So just the introduction, a little bit very quickly to go through it. It explains that it's just a really important document that we need to be able to look at, you know, trust me, it's not anything judgmental. It is completely confidential. It's just working out so we can figure out what your disposable income is. And maybe if we see something and we think you might be paying a little bit too much for it, we can give you advice about some cost savings or where you could look elsewhere. So it's confidential. Try and fill it in as accurately as possible. It isn't going to go anywhere. We just will talk about it, go through it. And then it just says cells highlighted in yellow, that's for personal information, and cells highlighted in blue is for financial details. And then just explaining again that there are 2 significant tabs, income and expenditure, and then the other one, which is assets and liabilities. Thank you so much. So income and expenditure questionnaire. We've got here, you can fill in the details for yourself, but also I've included an extra one in case you live with your partner, or in case it doesn't have to be your partner, it can just be someone that you share bills with at home. So I have a lot of people call me up and say, oh, where do I fill in, for instance, if I split the bills, if we pay, let's say £100 on gas and electricity, well, my share's £50. And who I'm with, they also pay £50. So that's why we have that, so that there's a dual section to fill it in. And then we know as a total, as a household, how much you're paying. So step 1, if we go to the top again, Katie, please, it's just forename, surname, and date of birth. Very, very simple. And for yourself, and obviously for whoever you live with, or your partner or husband or wife, whoever it may be. And then we look at the income side. So this is looking at absolutely everything where you may get money coming in. Could be from a limited company, it could be locuming. You could have a 0-hour contract where you're being paid. There's many, many different, or just a salaried role. There's many different options there. And it's just filling it in for how much you have per year for each of these. And then I have a lot of people,
just to jump in with a quick question, just because I know other people might wonder this earning from employment for the year, that is an after tax amount, presumably, like what you bring home after you've been taxed, or?
That's a very good question. So this one is just, it's the total amount. So before your tax has been taken, because we look at that as a whole. Very, very great question. So yeah, we look at it as a whole for the total, and then the bit underneath, it says, how much do you end up with per month? So this is the amount after all tax has been taken, and what you end up. So as a guide, if you get a pay slip, it's what's at the bottom of how much ends up coming into your bank account after everything, pensions, national insurance contributions, income tax, benefits in kind, all things like that have been paid. And that is pretty much the figure of what we will then base it on when we get to the end, which I'll come to.
Super.
So this is quite simply anything that I could think of that people might spend. And yes, we'll come down. There's a lot of jokes about there is one for a swimming pool on there at some point. So tennis court maintenance. So when we go to the top, we are looking at initially, this is essential. So we call this, what the essential spends are for your household. So gas, electricity, council tax, water rates. These are things that you have to pay if you have your own property. You might be renting, so you don't, and that's absolutely fine. But there's other things on there like potentially TV license. You've got the alarm or food, just general your food. How much do you spend per month? Work it out per week and then times it by 4, just to give you a bit of an idea of how much goes where. Pet food, we all need to, eat. It's essential. So yeah, it's looking at things like that. Now, that's just general food. That's not like takeaways. I think there's another one further down, because that's what we would class as not essential, but discretionary. And by the power, if you just type in any of those 2 boxes, 2 numbers, Katie, just above, so just put like 10 and 10 or something. Then what will happen, you'll see that box at the bottom will be changing. So it will give separate figures for each one. It automatically calculates that for you. So we're looking at this, and Katie's essentials are £70 per month, as an example.
I wish.
Yeah. So that's like as an example of essential. Now, the next we would move on to personal expenses. So discretionary. So do you have to do that? You've got clothing and footwear. Okay, some of these could be argued they can be essential, but we've just put them in somewhere for now. So there's the one for eating out that Katie's just about to fill in. Christmas and birthday presents. We forget that throughout the year, we spend a fair bit on presents for people. Mobile phones, health insurance, gifts to charities. You've also got, gosh, there's one there for holiday home expenses or traveling expenses other than motoring. So there is a section further down below as well for things like that. Sports and hobbies. So gym memberships. How much is that? Wine and spirits. I've seen quite a lot go into that one for some clients. But it doesn't matter. Like we said, there's no judgment. There's no right or wrong answer. I'm only having a laugh about that, but it can be absolutely anything. There's no wrong answer. It's just finding out what goes where. Now, it's quite important to note that on some of these, you might pay for them annually. So I have car insurance, and I think actually I'm going to pay for that annually rather than splitting it monthly. If you do have an annual amount, then just what I would do in here is it's to work how much it is monthly. So let's just say you have car insurance of, 100. It works out at £1,200, okay, for the whole year. So this is just an example. Obviously, I'd have to be driving a very expensive car to do that, sports car of some type. But you would have £100 per month that you would then pay and put into that, that motoring expenses like Katie's just put in. And then next to it, I would put due July the 1st, yearly amount 1,200. Yeah, perfect. Because you can look back at this and go, I'm sure my car insurance is due soon. And then you just look at it and you go, right, yeah, there it is. It's July. And then you can budget for that to go, actually, I've got a big lump sum that's coming up. So I need to save a little bit extra in the months before to make sure that I can afford it. And then everything else, petrol, oil, servicing and repairs. So you've got all your motoring expenses, because that can really add up, especially with petrol prices recently. Professional fees, same thing. Accountant fees, dentist fees, opticians fees, things like that. And if there's something else that we've missed, then I urge you, please let me know. But this is everything that we could think of. Or I think you can actually change it as well. If you did want to change any of the amounts on there or any of the descriptions, you are able to, and then you can put the amount in. And then children. If you have kind of children or grandchildren, anyone that you're providing for, you know, just give a little bit of detail on them, because, for instance, we get to fill out this in case, you know, you want to set up a separate policy for them. We will need base details on the child to be able to set it up. And then pocket money, how much do you spend? Because every single month it can add up. And then you'll see at the bottom that we didn't fill in that monthly amount, but if you go to the top and maybe just put in there £500 a month or something in that, how much do you end up per month? The one just below there, there we go. So let's just say at the end of the month you have £500. So if you go to the bottom, it automatically pre-populates it to say 500 per month. Now, the essential expenditure, so this is everything that we said, motoring costs to get about, and that top one with your council tax, gas, electricity, that's all added up. I mean, these are obviously made up figures, so that's like £170. Your discretionary, you've got £359 going on that, on everything else that's in there, which brings you total expenditure, because we've added the essential and discretionary, because, you know, looking at that now, £170 of essential is what you have to budget and put aside every single month. With the discretionary, you know that you've got £359 per month that potentially you might not need to spend money on. And you can make, you don't, you know, you can, but it just means knowing where that goes and checking. If you do want to put a savings plan in place, you could maybe spend less there and put it into something else, like maybe an income protection policy or an investment or savings, or for your first house, or a stocks and shares ISA. But you can see there, it adds them both. £170 plus 359 equals obviously 529. But then we take £500 of how much you've got coming in after tax away from 529 of, or how much all your spending is, which gives a disposable income of minus 29 pounds. So I would immediately be saying there, where could you potentially save some money? You look and you go, eating out, you've got £20 there. Do you have to eat out every month? Do you need like a cleaner in the house for another £20? So yeah, there's certain things that you could maybe negotiate with yourself and say, right, to make sure I'm in the green and earning something and coming out with some form of disposable income, that I could just do with paying, you know, less than a certain amount on potentially discretionary things. So yeah, that's why we look at it and we fill it in, and it will also fill it in for your partner as well at the end, so you know roughly how much it is happening then. Maybe it's just me, but it can be quite a fun exercise to do together, to just go, this is how much we pay, right? Gas and electricity, that's going to go up, you know, by over 50% soon. So can we together, you need to look at your expenses and find out, can you pay the additional amount? And, you know, then you look at your own and say, can I budget to pay that additional amount when it comes? So you're not panicking and ending up potentially going into debt because you haven't looked at it now. So it's a really cathartic, it's really positive to go through this. Just take a little bit of time to go through it. Look at your phone, look at your bank account if it's online, and just scroll through. And maybe if you think, well, it changes per month, I've had an expensive month this month, then go through it for 3 months. I just gave this advice for someone earlier today. I said, okay, so it was a bit of an anomaly to spend a lot this month. So go the month before, work out how much you spent, and then go for the month before that and work out how much you spent, and then just total it up, all of them over 3 months, and then divide it by 3, and that'll give you a rough amount of how much your bills are on average.
And presumably the easiest way for people to do this is if they've got a bank statement or they've got online banking. And
online banking, yeah.
go through item by item, because, and this is again a personal reflection for me, and one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about what we do at Vet U is that with our own experiences, we've learned lessons. And I know to start with, I'd probably go through this and be like, yeah, it's about a tenner, it's about this much. And the reality is that the more clear that we can be, the more empowered that we'll be. So now when I revisit this exercise, I'll have my banking app up, and I'll do similar for my business stuff, and I'll have my bank statements there. I'll be like, right, okay, this is the gym membership, this is this much. This was me eating out and I grabbed a coffee. I'm going to just add it on top of what's already in the coffee and eating out section. And then you know that you've got absolute clarity, and it's very easy sometimes for it to turn into, this is a roughly this amount. And actually, let's be as clear as we can be. And I always love that spreadsheet for that. And the fact that it adds it all up for you at the end and you can see it, like the live changes to it, is fantastic.
So like monthly disposable income, you're not having to calculate it all. So don't worry about being good with numbers. It does it for you. And you can go through it. Just make sure, save a copy, and then maybe the month, the month later, do it again. Make sure it all matches and save it. You can have one saved as one amount, and then one saved, so you can date it today, and then one dated in a month's time as well when you go through it again and go, okay, I'm spending more. Why am I spending more? And just use a comparison.
Yeah. And I know that we've been through this tab. Do you want to run through the final one?
That'll be great. So this one it's another thing that we look at, and it is pretty much your assets, so what you own, and your liabilities, so what you owe. And we do the same again, we match it up. So we start with one of the most important parts, and this is protection. So what do you have in place currently? Do you have life insurance, critical illness cover, income protection? And if you so, who's the provider? Is it Aviva? Is it LV? Is it someone like that? And what is the level of cover that you have? And then obviously just put in the additional detail. I pay £16 a month, and it will give me a monthly amount of X should I be ill. Now, this is so important because as a financial advisor, I look at this, and I had someone earning quite a lot of money. It was around about, compared to what he was, it was about 50,000 he was earning, but he was only covered for his income protection for £1,000 should he be ill. That didn't even cover a third of the amount of his bills that there were. So he was paying for something that wasn't giving him what really he needed should he be off ill. So I was like, well, you can keep it the same, but just know you're only going to get this much, because you can forget about your policies. But then you have a job change and a pay rise, or you might take another additional job that will give you some more money. Always make sure it matches your circumstances. And that's why I will have a look at that and check that it's the right policy for you. So think of me as your little kind of guardian angel looking and going, right, is this right for you? Let's have a look at this. Critical illness cover, same thing. Any protection you have. Do you have private medical insurance with your company that they offer? So you'd put private medical insurance, company policy. And if you know the company number, P1234567, and put that in there, because that's really kind of helpful. And it'll be brownie points for your advisor as well if you've managed to look into that number, so that we can have a look and just double check that it's the right one for you.
And just to ask a quick question, if people aren't sure about the level of cover that they've got, where can they check in to find that information out so they're all prepared when they come and chat with you?
Brilliant question. So if they haven't got any paperwork or anything like that, it'd be very strange. Maybe they would have look at setting something up online as well, but you can always call the provider. So you could call company ABC and you just go, I have got a protection policy with you. I think it's this. They will ask for your name, your full name, your national insurance number, your address. And this is important. It has to be the address of which you were registered when you set it up. because you could have moved since then. They'll go, oh, the address isn't right. So make sure you know your address history. Just checking what else they will ask for. They'll ideally want to know the number, but just say, look, I don't have my number. That's what I'm calling for. Could you give me access to my online account, or could you send me some updated details online or in the post? And then you've got it. Because keeping track of something that you pay for should be definitely something that you look into and do.
And that's such a good nudge as well for anyone that does have policies already in place. It's just like you said there, Ruth, as well, that our circumstances do change. So, for example, we might go from being employed to having a company, and maybe we take our payments differently and it's structured differently. And maybe that's something we need to go back and rechat over. And I know certainly for me, when I became a limited company director as a locum, that was a conversation I had to have because it was a different way that my income was coming in. So it's a really good nudge for people that maybe have had the forethought to add in these policies, just to remember to revisit them, and having it all in one place is so useful, isn't it?
There's so many benefits of just doing this. Like, I have people that come and say, oh, do you know what? I've just gone through all this information because my mortgage advisor asked for it, or they wanted to know what protection policies they have in place. You are spot on, and thank you for raising that, Katie, because if you leave a company that you're employed in and you go self-employed or as a locum, just double check, because that income protection that doesn't come with you. You have to start again. That sometimes some companies will let you carry on the policy if you call them up and just ask them, but then you have to pay for it. And then obviously then it'll be judged at your current age and circumstances. So 100% take note of what happens if you leave and what potentially you won't have and will need to set up. And the other thing, it was really good. Like, I had someone recently who went from an employed role to a self-employed role. And then you would look at your finances and you would actually look and go, right, I know every single month, I need to have this amount to cover the bills, and then match it up. And then, you've got to hit that to make sure your bills are paid. So it's just great to have on so many levels, and to just get that spreadsheet up and look where it is.
Amazing. And in terms of, obviously, if people are rewatching this or they want to take some action, I think you've explained so powerfully there, Ruth, how this is such a simple but a valuable exercise, because then you know fully everything. You've got that clarity, don't you, as well, which I think so often, and one of the reflections that we hear a lot at VetU, and I know you'll hear as well, is that people say, you know what, it's not quite as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to take me days. I thought it was going to take hours, but actually it took me about an hour, and it was a lot less uncomfortable than I thought it was going to be. And I'm so glad that I've done it. So if you are sat on the edge of doing this, then please just remember what a valuable tool that it is. And I can see that Liv's just popped in the chat here as well from BVCIS. I found it very helpful to look back at as well, like Ruth said. And yeah, I do just the same thing, revisit this every few months. And yes, it takes an hour, but actually quite often it's helped me pick up on stuff that I wanted to change, but maybe wouldn't have been obvious to me until it was a few months down the line. So
it's
amazing.
So great to do, and it just empowers you to know what goes where. Grab a brew, sit down, get a bit of chocolate, and or whatever floats your boat, crisps, and just sit and just do it. And I promise you won't feel as bad. And then we can start putting something in place for you to help get you to where you want to be, just by having a look. And it goes a bit further in that. It goes into bank details, goes into not bank details, let me just rephrase that, who you bank with, and like certain amounts, because we match it up then, and liabilities like with your mortgage. So things that you owe, and just, it's very self-explanatory. But if you have any questions, you just send me an email and we can always just talk through it.
Thank you so much, Ruth. And I think, again, we'll pop it in the chat box, but anyone that does want to jump in and chat to Ruth, she has kindly opened a diary up, which we'll run through that. And it might be that you've already booked a call in and you're actually looking at this and watching it just to prepare moving forward for how useful this financial questionnaire process is. So I know certainly, like we said, at VetU, as team members and as members of the community, this is something that we really do encourage people to do. I was quickly going to run through some benefits of doing that before we jump into some questions and answers as well. So thank you, Ruth, for running through that so thoroughly. And hopefully that's broken down a few barriers for anyone that's seen the financial questionnaire, is a bit like, spreadsheet, like, or maybe it's something that has become like on tomorrow's list, which I know I certainly was a person that did for a long time as well. So hopefully that's made it seem a bit more doable and you can see the value of it as well. So some of the benefits that we came up with, and I know Ruth agrees with lots of these as well, but from being a community that really do encourage people to do this, and as a team that you certainly all have their own reflections on a personal level, how valuable this has been to do. We've come up with a list, and we've also like to add in that sometimes it can be helpful to do it with friends. So you'll see here, we've got a few of the VetU team, we've got myself, Paul and Ebony, we've got Ruth in the background as well, and you'll see familiar face Rory the vet as well there too. So you might well find it useful if you've got that account buddy, like Ruth said last time around, someone that you sit down and maybe you do it with your partner, or maybe you do it with a friend, do it with a family member, and actually maybe that makes it a bit more doable when you both got that scheduled in. So one of the things that we found it really helpful for is you just get that clarity on what the fixed and discretionary costs are. Because like we said right at the beginning, sometimes it can be really easy for us to say, I think I probably spend about £20 on coffee in the month ish. And the reality might be that you spend £10 on coffee, or the reality might be that you spend £50 on coffee, which are both fine if that's something that's affordable. But at the same time, just knowing that figure, it gives us that power rather than it being it's ish, which gives that vagueness, which then doesn't help us making decisions. So it helps us to understand what's affordable. I think Ruth looped that round really, really nicely from a professional point of view of actually, having this conversation with Ruth. To be able to be sold a policy, they need to make sure that you can actually afford that policy. And knowing that on paper and having those figures down just helps you know that you can afford it, and helps the company that is providing the policy know that you can do as well. And we touched on emergency funds last time round as well. Is there an amount we want to put into an emergency fund? How much is free to do that? We might decide that we want to start putting £100 a month into an emergency fund, but we might not actually have that cash free. So if we get that clarity on paper first, we can know how much we can afford to put in there. And maybe if we still want to put £100 in, we can look at, okay, so where is my income going? And what do I want to maybe choose to cut back on to mean that I've got cash to put into that fund? We can understand our longer term projection. And what do we mean by this? Essentially, from a VetU perspective, we mean if we are in the minus figure every month, that means that in 6 months' time, we're going to be in 6 months worth of minus figures. Is it that every month we've got a little bit spare? Does that mean that perhaps we want to do something different with that cash? We maybe want to invest it, perhaps we want to up our pension. There's loads of different things we can do with it. But knowing that that's there, and what is going to be like our landing destination if we carry on that flight path, or do we want to just tweak it slightly? Because that can have a huge difference. We've got the opportunity, like we said, to tweak those and change those outgoings. I know Ruth has said many times that quite often when people go through this process, they realize, oh my goodness, I did not realize that this was still going out of my bank account. There might be other people on this call or watching the recording back that are super vigilant and know where every single penny goes, but we're all different on this spectrum of where we are with our finances and our financial education. So actually for some people, it'll be a real eye-opener to realize, oh my goodness, I didn't know I was still paying for Disney Plus and Netflix at the same time. So that's where we found it useful. Again, we can identify our bottlenecks. Is it that, yes, we've cut back on all of the expenditures that we can, and maybe we want to go to that point of negotiating a higher salary. Maybe it's that we're going to a new role. And like we said, how much do we need? Like what would help, so we can see where those bottlenecks are. It means we can take action based on the facts, and we can also understand who we need help from. Because we might start to realize, okay, I need to speak to my bank. Maybe I need to speak to a financial advisor. Maybe I need to speak to an accountant. Maybe it's that I need to speak to a tax advisor. We can start to realize, okay, where do I need help here? And that can help us moving forward rather than us sometimes, and self-admittedly, I did for a long time, putting our head in the sand because everything was just about okay. So like we said here, we can take some action based on those facts. We know the facts and figures. We can look at it with curiosity rather than criticism, and we can use our resources. And I know Ruth always loves this meme as well, but just to add in and to clarify that we know that not every single person on this call is going to be a spreadsheet person, and we get that. So there might be a way that you can copy this down. Grab your pen and paper, grab your calculator, have it in a notebook. You might want to do a page a month, and that is like, okay, I'm going to revisit this, or a page every 3 months and revisit it as well. I'm sure there are many people out there, Ruth, at the minute that they see a spreadsheet go, whoa, this cat's expression.
I love it. I absolutely love it. But honestly, because it doesn't matter, write it on a piece of paper. Just create your own little spreadsheet. Do whatever is right for you, whether it's on a Word document. Just make sure you have it somewhere where you can tot up what goes where. Mine's just a guide. There's no right or wrong answer. Just make sure that it's something that you can look at and, you know, compare to. So yeah, whatever works for you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ruth. And hopefully that explanation of the financial questionnaire has given you some insights into how it's doable, how it's useful, and how it is a really valuable step in whatever path that you're taking with your finances, and something to revisit as well. So thank you so much for listening to that part, for you to know a little bit more about how to take action, the financial questionnaire. Obviously, if you've still got questions and sticking points with it, I know that Ruth is more than happy to talk them through. But if you really want to empower yourself before taking the next step, spending some time getting that clarity, set yourself up for success. If it's that you need someone to keep you accountable, you want to, like Ruth said, whether it's that you've got your mug of hot chocolate, perhaps it's that you enjoy doing it on a Sunday afternoon, perhaps there's a time that actually you can ring fence and just get that in the diary and realize that, like most people say, it's really not as uncomfortable as we think it's going to be. And certainly as a coach as well, one of the things that I see from people is that we can make it seem a lot bigger in our mind than actually the reality of it is. And what it costs us to avoid it is probably a lot more than it time-wise or frustration-wise it costs us to actually do it. So actually short-term, having some spreadsheets for long-term benefit as well. So look at what works for you as an individual.